This video is going to be on using trig ratios, trigonometric ratios, to find the side length in a right triangle. Now, the tri in trigonometric means that these ratios pertain to triangles, and in specific, we're looking with right triangles. So there's three types of trig ratios that you learn about. One of them is sine, and sine is equal to the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. The next one that you learn about is cosine, which is the adjacent side of the triangle over the hypotenuse divided by the hypotenuse. And lastly, tangent. Tangent is the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. So how we remember this is the phrase so, ka, toa. So a lot of you might remember that from geometry or be familiar with that. SOHCAHTOA is how we solve for any missing side or missing angle of a right triangle. So let's see which angle we're given in this case. We're given this angle right here, this angle of 51 degrees. So we need to label these sides appropriately from this angle. So I always start with the opposite side. So the opposite side is the one that's directly across from the angle. Think about it like the angle is almost opening up into the opposite side. So the opposite side in this case is 7. See that? 7. So that's our O. The hypotenuse is the longest side, and it's also the side that's across from the right angle. So here we have the right angle. The side across from it is x. So our hypotenuse is a side length of x, which means that this last side here is our adjacent side. And adjacent means next to. And if you'll notice, it's right next to the angle that we're given. So we need to figure out what we're going to use in order to solve this problem. Now let's see. We know that this side length is 7, so we want to use O because we actually know that information, and that we know we want to figure out what this side is right here, so because that's our x value. So we want to go ahead and find x given that 7. So which of these three trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent, uses opposite and hypotenuse? Well, let's see. The first one. Sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So using that information, we're going to solve for x. So the sine of the angle, and the angle is 51 degrees, sine 51, is equal to opposite, that's 7, over or divided by hypotenuse, which is x. So we need to solve for x. Now, notice that over here, x is in the denominator, right? So since x is in the denominator, we want to get it out of there so that we can solve for it. So one way that we can do this is by cross multiplication. So really, sine of 51 is the same as sine of 51 divided by 1, because anything divided by 1 is itself. Now we can use cross multiplication in order to get the x out of the denominator. So if we were to write this after we cross multiply, it would be the sine of 51 times x is equal to, well, 1 times 7 is just 7. Now, if we wanted to get x by itself, since this is a multiplication, we would have to divide both sides by whatever the value of the sine of 51 is equal to. So go ahead and do this on your calculator. When I do the sine of 51 on my calculator, I get roughly 0.777. So it's going to be 7 divided by 0.777. And let's go ahead and see what happens on the left side. Well, the sine of 51 cancels out, so x is going to be equal to 7 divided by 0.777. And when we do that on our calculators, 7 divided by 0.777, you'll get 9.009. And since this says 9.009, since this says round your answer to the nearest tenth, that would be this place. This is roughly equal to just 9. Let's go ahead and look at the explanation. Oops. And here you can see that we get 9.